Introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, today is the second Thursday of the month, which means it's time for Vegan Doc Talk with Dr. Scott Harrington, where he answers your questions. Please welcome him back to the show. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, Chef AJ. Once again, always thank you for having me on the show. I feel super lucky to be here.
Nice. Anything going on in your neck of the woods?
No, not really. We just had a big storm, tornado warnings, and all that stuff. That was kind of crazy, but we made it through.
Yeah. So I'm curious, we'll get to the questions from the viewers in just a second, but I'm curious with your practice, are you seeing a lot of patients either on the GLP drugs like Ozempic or asking for them? Have you noticed an increase in that?
Absolutely. I mean, this really has hit the nation. The GLP-1 medications, semaglutide, tirzepatide, so the Ozempic and Mounjaro and everything. And so, yeah, I have lots of patients that are asking for it. And, as a lifestyle medicine doctor, I'm all the time trying to figure out ways to handle medical problems without medicines. And of course, I worry about these medicines increasing your appetite, because you're having to stay on them all the time. And so that's the talk that I just did before. So I'll have people reference over to that. But oh man, that is, they do work. They do work, but the idea of having to stay on them perpetually is definitely concerning.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder how long it takes for, bad, when the proverbial what hits the where, how long is that process? Because I can't imagine people going through this process for a long period of time without there being some kind of side effects.
Yes, when millions of people are taking them, the various things will pop up. So there's theoretical risks for in animal tests. They had increased thyroid and medullary cancer in the animal models, but so far I don't think that has been seen in the humans. However, that's anybody who's ever had a history of thyroid cancer, of course that's a contraindication, but. I mean, to give it some support, the before medicines for weight loss in the past have been very kind of barbaric. You could try to increase a stimulant so much that it makes your appetite just so bad. So you can, do methamphetamine related medications and try to lose weight that way and cause your blood pressure to go sky high. Or you could take orlistat, fat blockers, fat absorption blockers, and have greasy poops and stuff like that. So that's not that great. So in terms of physiology, is working way better in your normal fullness mechanisms, hormone mechanism, but it's not training you to eat right. And it might be hijacking your appetite so badly that once you come off the medicine, then all of a sudden your drive to eat, it's so that to me would seem like the most concerning thing.
And what about the cost?
And the cost is ridiculous. Yeah. So one of the craziest things that I don't understand about this whole deal is that if you do it, so you go to the pharmacy and you get the medication, and if you have to pay cash, it could be $1,000 a month or something. Or if you qualify for your insurance, that's great. But there's other people providing this medication at various compounding pharmacies and weight loss clinics, which I don't really quite understand how they're getting the medicine and being able to provide it more cheaply, but it can be anywhere from $300 to $500 a month at those places as well. But that's not something that I do, but patients are asking for it. Yes, absolutely. It's a craze. It's taking the nation by storm for sure.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It's just too bad because you and I have both seen so many people that have been able to get stellar results with just eating, potatoes and rice and fruit and vegetables.
Right. You can skip the increasing your appetite with this medication, and you could fill yourself up with highly nutritious foods that's high in fiber that will cause your own GLP-1 hormone to be activated. And so that's just like you've been teaching us all along, Chef AJ, the calorie density, 600 calories per pound or less. those types of foods really will cause GLP-1 elevation because they're really bulky and low calorie and this kind of thing.
Yeah, well, but people want to eat the other foods.
So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, nice. Okay, well, let's jump right into the questions. Thank you for sending them in advance, everyone. This first one is from Melanie. It's a question about cholesterol. Is low HDL a concern for a whole food plant-based eater? And how do I raise it without using fish oil? My HDL is 44, my total cholesterol is 148, and the bad cholesterol numbers are really good. My doctor wants me to get the HDL level up by taking fish oil every day because he says we need cholesterol in our bodies to help regulate hormones. I still need to lose weight, but no other diagnoses.
Wow, I'm sad that the doctors are trying to tell you to raise your cholesterol. So we do know that HDL is considered more of the good cholesterol, but it's all relative. It's all relative, and the overall cholesterol number is more important in this scenario. So if you're under 150, you're dramatically reduce your overall risk for heart attacks and ischemic stroke type atherosclerosis related stroke. So the big thing is that you've got your total down to under 150. Hallelujah, congratulations, and you can stop there. So that was one of the things too, like alcohol was supposed to maybe it was 1 to 2 glasses of alcohol, or maybe it's fish or this or that. But they even developed medications that could potentially raise HDL, but they turned out there was no mortality benefit by doing that. So they stopped all the trials on those medicines. And so overall, you just want to get your cholesterol low. Now, exercise, there may be some exercise benefit increasing the HDL. So that is a potential. But overall, you don't have to worry about it. And you definitely don't have to go on additional fish oils to raise your HDL. You should be super happy. Other people would trade places with you for sure.
I believe it was Dr. Clapper that said that the HDL are like the garbage trucks, and when you don't have garbage, you don't need garbage trucks.
Right, right. HDL helps to escort cholesterol back to the liver for processing, and so yeah. But it's all in a relative. By raising your HDL, you would in fact you would be increasing your overall cholesterol, which might not be a good thing.
Yep. Well, we have another cholesterol question, but this time it's about a child from Anne. And she says, Dr. Harrington, what are the causes for a 14-year-old boy to have high cholesterol? And which foods should I make sure to include and exclude? He was raised plant-based from birth with no oil or sugar, salt at the table, but not used regularly. He enjoys his rice and potato dishes, but I don't know what to add or remove from his diet. He's physically active daily and no weight or other issues. I find that so interesting because I didn't ever even had my cholesterol tested probably till I was like in my 20s. Like
Yeah.
child, I don't remember anyone ever testing them.
Yeah, so the pediatrics, you can give statins to the pediatric population. Although, I mean, I just had to look that up really quickly because I've never prescribed to the peds population. But so what do we have here? We have he's got elevated cholesterol, but they're saying that he's plant-based as well.
Yes, since birth, it sounds like.
That's quite impressive. And so then the big thing is saturated fat. Saturated fat is messes up the receptor that pulls the cholesterol back into the liver. So a big one would be, kind of looking if there's plant-based causes of saturated fat, like coconut oil, like palm oil or cocoa butter, these kinds of things that are the tropical fats. So you want to look out for that. The next thing you want to look out for is fiber. How like, is he constipated? Is there like decreased transit through the stool? Because that's one of the ways that you're expelling some of the cholesterol that way. So I would kind of go over some dietary things with them and see if they could maximize that and retest. And if the cholesterol was off the charts, maybe test the family to see if there is kind of a familial high cholesterol. So if your cholesterol if you meet certain criteria. Let's see. If they have hyperlipidemia, familial heterozygous hypercholesterolemia, like if your LDL is over 190, they would consider that in the pediatric population based on gold standard treatment. But they have started to recommend testing kids earlier on because we do know that the fatty streaks of atherosclerosis are happening early on, and potentially treating it early on over time could increase their lifespan. Now, of course, I don't have like super craze about statins or whatever, but you're monitoring it and you find that it's super high and you're doing everything you can, then the next step is to come to terms with whether you would actually take the treatment. There are various amla powder and berberine are sort of herbal options. And so you could try that and just work with your primary to test and get it down.
Yeah, but do we have to be worried about numbers? He sounds like he's trim, he's healthy, he's active.
Well, that's the thing. If he's super healthy and his cholesterol is off the charts, then there might be a genetic factor. Like if all the other factors are out of, if you take care of all the factors and we find that it's a genetic component, then there could be concern for early atherosclerosis and early heart attack. And so, yeah, if you look and it is ridiculously high, then you want to do something about it.
Okay, thank you. Here's a question. What about all the information out there that women over 50 need more protein? Most say to get 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. In Dr. Greger's new book, How Not to Age, didn't he refute that?
I think so. I mean, I freaking love Dr. Greger. If there was a Nobel Prize in nutrition, he needs to get it. He's quite impressive.
I could have sworn he said that on the show, that the actual opposite is true, but I don't recall because.
Well, so the How Not to Age, one of the things that methionine restriction and I believe isoleucine or one of these proteins that we're overdoing protein in the U.S. And let's take a look at this equation that you said. This is one of the standard myths or misunderstandings where I think the question said 1 gram per pound of healthy body weight. So that's what you'll see on the magazines, and that's easy to remember, 1 for 1. Well, you have to remember the metric system versus the imperial system versus, the English. It's pounds. There's 2.2 pounds per kilogram. So already you're kind of doubling it's actually based on metric system, 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram of ideal body weight. So by putting pounds in there, you're like doubling it already, doubling the requirement. So let's say if she's 150 pounds, you'd say, oh, that's 150 grams of protein. That's a lot. But if it was by kilograms, then it would be like 70. So 70, but that's still a lot. 70 is still a lot. That's why you like to use the ideal body weight, whereas we're going to calculate protein requirement not for your total body mass, because we don't really need to calculate it based on your fat percentage. We want to calculate the protein requirements based on your skeleton and your muscles, your lean body mass. And there is a calculator. It is what I would like to call a Kentucky windage calculator for how much your mass is for muscles and bones. And so for women, it's 100 pounds and then 5 pounds per inch over 5 feet. So you would calculate the body weight. So we'll say if she's 5'4", then you go 100 plus 4 times 5, so 120. So then you calculate the kilograms. Let's say it's 55 or 60, and then you multiply that by 0.8. Anyway, that whole process, it gets you a much lower numbers, anywhere from 40, 50, 55, potentially grams per protein. Over that is considered just excess. The body has to deal with it. The body has to do hyperfiltration through the kidney. work harder, raise your blood pressure, all these things. So whenever there's these debates, like maybe people who are older should be 1 gram or 1.1 gram per kilogram ideal body weight. Yeah, there's these debates. But what do they say when someone actually has kidney problems? When someone has kidney problems, they're like, oh, you should be 0.6 grams per gram per ideal body weight. And so I take a look at that and I say, oh, so obviously we're overdoing it and we're causing problems with our kidneys. And if our kidneys are having problems, we got to be, more cautious. And so I kind of tell my patients, don't worry about this. Don't be worrying about protein, because if you ever use a food log, chronometer, or MyFitnessPal or something, you'll notice you're getting way over 40, 50 grams of protein with normal intake. You can do it with vegan diet, no problem. Especially if you include any kind of beans and greens and this kind of thing, you'll be blowing that 40 to 60 grams of protein requirement through the roof. So.
Nice. All right. Yeah, I think I said the wrong book, not How Not to Die. You're right. It was How Not to Age, but I can check that interview. But I could have
Yeah, it causes aging. It causes I don't want to speak because I'm not going to get the exact right reference or whatever, but yeah, it increases your aging, basically. High protein diets, and that's one of the big things that they have found, that to slow aging is to slow your protein roll.
Yep. Nice. Thank you. Here's a question from, Emmy. Okay. Can weight loss cause low levels of protein in your urine? My blood has been tested for kidney function and even given a kidney ultrasound, and all tests came back normal. The only two things that have happened is I had COVID and I've lost about 25 pounds.
Can weight loss cause protein in the urine? Is
Mhm.
that kind of the question?
Yes.
No, proteinuria, protein in the urine, your kidneys shouldn't lose protein. Now, but when protein, a urinalysis is sometimes in standard labs, basic labs, where people don't get really labs for any reason other than just screening. And then sometimes you'll see trace proteinuria. And in this case, it may be basically a false positive, where you can get some postural changes that cause protein in the urine. So what you have to do is you have to retest. You have to retest a couple times to make sure that you're not having protein loss in the urine. If it's trace, if it's like very mild. However, if you have a strong, like 3+, they'll say trace 1+, 2+, 3+. If you're having something big like 3+, you need to focus on this as a potential problem for you, and you need to get it worked up. You may have to quantify how much protein is coming out by having your doctor order a 24-hour urine collection. You pee in a little cowboy hat and you collect it in this big jug in the fridge, and you collect the urine, because you need to figure out, you need to get the perfect diagnosis for where your protein is coming from, what part of the kidney, the tubes, the various renal cells, the glomerulus, because it's very specific, the treatments, and being seen by a renal specialist. So weight loss shouldn't be a cause of dramatic protein loss in the urine. If you're experiencing trace protein, we do see this a lot, and you simply want to retest, make sure this is actually persistent. If it is persistent, you have to quantify it with probably one of those 24-hour urine collections and help get a diagnosis.
Thanks so much. This doesn't say who it's from, which is weird, but the question is, many people, including me, have lost a lot of weight when we went on a whole food plant-based diet and have had to have their gallbladder removed in emergency surgeries due to gallstones pretty close to the time that this is happening. Is there a relationship, or is there just a coincidence? If there is one, how do you prevent it?
Gallstones is a known complication of intense weight loss. And I don't know if you've seen this, Chef AJ, but yeah, when people are losing weight really quickly. Sometimes they'll develop gallstones, and I can't remember the exact mechanism for why. Maybe this is because they are used to eating a fatty diet, and the gallbladder is used to having being used a lot. And then when you're on a low fat diet, maybe your gallbladder is not pumping out the bile as much. I don't know. I just made that up, but I do know it is a known phenomenon. And so the way that you avoid this is to have, no more than say 1 pound a week, max 2 pounds. That is really quick weight loss. And so it can be kind of a shock to the body for such rapid weight loss and starvation states. But it's still appropriate. You want to be losing weight. You want to be getting a good about 1 pound or maybe 1.5 pounds a week, because otherwise when you don't, it becomes depressing and you kind of stall for weight loss, and you feel like, oh my gosh, what am I doing all this? Why am I struggling? So it is good to see the 1 to 1.5 pound a week max weight loss. But that's to me the only way to prevent this specific side effect.
Yeah, I've actually known 2 people where that happened. Rapid weight loss, about 60 pounds, and one was 100 pounds, and they needed their gallbladders out like on an emergency basis. Yeah. So it's like it's the fat so when you lose weight, you're losing your own fat, and then that does something to make the gallbladder go.
Yeah, I like, let's look it up. What is the mechanism of gallstones?
So would be the way to prevent it is to you don't want to tell people not to lose weight, but maybe lose weight more slowly.
Yes. Rapid weight loss, because the body secretes cholesterol into the bile, additional cholesterol in the bile, which can lead to cholesterol stones formed from crystals. And also decrease gallbladder movement. So yeah, when you eat a big fatty meal, the bile that's in the gallbladder squeezes out to help you metabolize and absorb that the fatty meal. But if you're never eating a fatty meal, and it just kind of can sit in there and potentially cause gallstones. So it sounds like that is the mechanism. Yeah, this is really hard. So she has had a gallbladder removed, and once that happens, there's a kind of a good analogy for how your metabolism changes. The bile is being excreted by the liver routinely, and it's being collected by the gallbladder and concentrated. And I use the analogy of the Dawn dishwasher liquid or sink. When it's all concentrated and thick, it's like maple syrup consistency, very viscous. That is the kind of the bile consistency as it comes out of the gallbladder. Now, if you took the soap and you poured water inside the jug to make it kind of go a little bit farther once it gets to the end, that is the consistency of the bile that's coming out straight from the liver before it's concentrated. And you'll know that if you're trying to get grease off a pan, if you use the thin liquid, it doesn't really cut the grease very much. But if you use a concentrated one, it really cuts through the grease and forms those miscules, those the soap bubbles that helps to wash away the fat. So if you have had your gallbladder removed, you'll know that if you eat a big fatty meal, that fat bolus goes into the intestines, and it can't be cut by the thin bile. And so you'll have bubble guts. You'll have, the food will move through the intestines a lot faster. You'll have intestinal distress, potentially diarrhea. And so people who've had gallbladder removed have to adjust the fat down to a really low amount, or else they get that immediate feedback.
That's interesting. Well, I think I can't speak for everyone, but the 2 people I know this happened to, they weren't trying to lose weight quickly. It's just that the diet was so powerful. It just happened quickly,
That it can happen at at normal natural rates of weight loss when you switch to a plant-based diet. That's why I don't want to, it's appropriate. The goal is to not get super obese so that this happens, but when it happens, I guess you could, it's kind of a normal aspect of it. Maybe just watch your fat intake potentially. I don't know how to guide them to prevent it.
Great, thanks. Michelle would like to know, Dr. Harrington, is dividing triglyceride level by HDL level a good indicator of insulin resistance? Is it good to have a hemoglobin A1C and home IR tests done for insulin resistance? And what are the best times to test blood glucose levels with a blood glucose monitor? You did a talk on continuous glucose monitors a few months ago.
Yeah, so I've heard some doctors do a ratio of the HDL and triglycerides, and I honestly don't pay too much attention to that. Although you can utilize it you can check it out, see what they say. But once again, total number of cholesterol I think is very important. That's kind of the most important number. Looking at LDL is also very important. So there was three questions. There was the HOMA IR. So insulin resistance is the name of the game. And if you're having some concerns that your blood sugar is going up and you think you might be type 1.5 diabetic, where you're starting to have insulin resistance, but it's too early to kind of see a pre-diabetic marker on your hemoglobin A1C, you can test your insulin and something called C-peptide. So C-peptide is kind of like a protein that sits on top of the insulin, and it gets cleaved off from the insulin when the insulin is used. So you'll have this sort of marker that's left over called C-peptide of your natural insulin. So I call it like a bottle cap. It's like a bottle cap. So you can see the bottle caps hanging around. You know there were the bottles around too. So these insulin and C-peptide is used to create, and a fasting blood sugar is used to create a HOMA IR, which is an insulin resistance marker, a test for insulin resistance. And so normally I'm not doing this, but if I'm concerned that a patient is starting to get diabetic or their blood sugar is going up, their sugar tolerance is worsening, we can try this and test this. Sometimes people who have a normal body shape, they're not overweight, they're not obese, like the classic type 2 diabetes model, insulin resistance, due to having so much fat. Then someone who is basically a normal body shape and they're having high blood sugars, and so we might test this. Another thing to test in this category of people who are normal weight are various insulin antibodies, insulin receptor antibodies, to see in a similar way like thyroid, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, where the body attacks the thyroid and people have low thyroid. In a way, you can have insulin receptor antibodies, and you can catch basically the start of type 1 diabetes early by testing these and seeing how your blood sugar is responding. So what's the best time to use a glucometer? Well, the glucometer, because of the slight inaccuracies of it, maybe 5 to 10, it's not as good as pricking your finger in terms of accuracy. So the big reason for using a glucometer is the trends, the glucose trends. And you can see how your glucose responds to a meal. You can see how far the excursion is from baseline. And so that's kind of how a really good way to use it. It can also tell you the 2-hour glucose tolerance, basically. There's multiple ways to diagnose diabetes. So there's fasting glucose. There's a random glucose over 200. So fasting is 126, and random over 200, or a 2-hour post glucose tolerance test load. I think it might be a 75-gram load. 2-hour is 140, having a blood sugar over 140. Reason why I mention this is this 2-hour time frame. You should try to be able to you should eat in a way that your blood sugar is normalized by back to baseline, hopefully by the 2-hour mark, I guess ideally. But this can help you get an early understanding if you're sort of pre-diabetic. If every time you eat, your blood sugar is not back down to its baseline by the 2-hour mark.
Thanks. Okay, we'll take one from a live viewer now. Her name is Linda, watching on YouTube, and she says, I have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, D type. Would a low FODMAP elimination diet be a good thing to try? Any suggestions on how to do it as a vegan?
So irritable bowel syndrome, diarrhea type, this can be problematic. You know, it's if people have diarrhea, if you have more than 3 stools per day routinely, then I like to bring in the gastroenterologist into the workup, because there are some things like pancreatic enzyme deficiency where, I mean, you've heard of it. We're just talking about diabetes, where the endocrine factor, the hormones released from the pancreas could be decreased, but the exocrine part of the pancreas, the hormone, the enzymes that it excretes, could be decreased, and this is called pancreatic insufficiency, and it makes you have malabsorption and you have diarrhea. So I do recommend that you get a workup. Another thing that is kind of a hidden diagnosis is microscopic colitis. So microscopic colitis is found by doing a colonoscopy with random biopsies throughout the colon to pick up inflammation, microscopic colitis. This is hard. People can go for years and years with chronic diarrhea without ever being diagnosed because it's kind of difficult to diagnose. So bring in the gastroenterologist and find that out. If everything is negative, then I would start, you know, kind of going over the diet. I don't really focus too much on FODMAP because honestly, it is quite confusing. It's when you start digging in, and I hate to restrict people's diets so dramatically that it's problematic. Now, if you are, especially if you're in a scenario where you're already really maybe close to being underweight, I don't want to restrict your diet too much. So in this case, I'm trying to add fiber. And so I'm making sure you're having whole grains and you're having beans. You say, wait a second, I'm having diarrhea. Why are you trying to give me more fiber? And so the concept is fiber is magical. It's a magical substance that if you're having constipation, it helps to loosen your stool. And if you're having diarrhea, it helps to kind of firm it up or turn it more soft serve as opposed to water. And the easiest low-hanging fruit after you do whole grains and beans is psyllium husk. Psyllium husk is a magical supplement. It's in Metamucil, but you can use psyllium husk. Psyllium husk, you can get Herba Prima brand or non-flavored brands. Metamucil's flavored. You might not like the flavor. So, but the Herba Prima non-flavored brands, you can put a tablespoon in water and it starts to gel up because there's a lot of these soluble fibers. The soluble fibers resist digestion in the intestines, and once they get into the colon, they help, they're a prebiotic mix that helps your body to improve the microbiome. So it is definitely good. It's hard to do more than 1 tablespoon of the psyllium because it causes too much gelling factor, and then it's like you're eating Jell-O as opposed to drinking a drink. So, but the nice thing about psyllium husk is you can put it in to juices or coffee or tea, or hot or cold, and so yeah, psyllium husk. So get the workup, and if you're into dietary approaches, make sure you're getting your servings of beans and whole grains to bulk your stool. And if you are still having trouble, you could do psyllium husk, add 1 serving of psyllium husk prior to your 3 meals. And then basically follow up and we'll game plan what's the next step. But I think that's a good start.
Thanks so much. This question is from Luann, and she said, I'm whole food plant-based and I've had some blood tests done for a physical. My vitamin K level was 2041 with the upper limit being 1500. I do eat a lot of greens, including kale and cruciferous vegetables. In addition to taking a vitamin D supplement with added vitamin K2 of 600 micrograms. My question is, will my high vitamin K level increase my risk of a blood clot or other risks?
I'm not sure if it will increase your risk for blood clot. You need to have enough vitamin K to make sure that you can clot. But I don't know if it works the other way. I'm not sure. But I have told people not to additionally supplement with vitamin K because the body produces vitamin K that's needed. It's not a essential nutrient because the body can make it itself. So I do recommend people who are deficient in vitamin D take vitamin D3, get a vegan version if possible. But I'm not so worried about you getting vitamin K because you're also eating a lot of plant foods that contain this, and the body makes the form that you need. So I'm a little concerned that it is elevated when you get it tested, and so switch to a regular form of vitamin K. Vitamin D without the vitamin K, and just eat normal plant foods.
Normal plant foods. Thanks. This is from Sarah. Can you ask what water filter product you recommend? I have a Berkey, but their filters have been back ordered for some time.
Oh, see, I wish I did that toxins lecture, and since then I haven't followed my own advice to order a reverse osmosis system, because I was on this environmental website that goes over the water, what's in the water, and it starts to be quite concerning. And so, but yeah, the reverse osmosis systems are the most powerful in terms of reducing things. And so I don't have a good recommendation. Maybe people who see this can put their recommendations in the chat, but the reverse osmosis systems tend to be expensive, and so you definitely want to do your homework.
So you don't have one right now that you recommend?
Yes, the Environmental Working Group has a lot of information about it. Environmental Working Group, they have this tap water database. You could put in your local municipal, like your county, you put in your county, and it'll tell you, like, my county has like 15 times the arsenic recommended by the mayor. And so certain things, carbon filtration works out, like the charcoal basically filters, it works. And those are things like Brita you can get, and you have to switch them out routinely. And many refrigerators come with these. My refrigerator has a carbon filtration system, but many of the other products that you want to get out of your water are through the reverse osmosis, and so that would be ideal. Now, honestly, I do feel like this is kind of the icing on the cake. Because I mean, you're eating so much other food, and you're getting so much other, and the relative amounts are really low. But if you have the resources and you have the availability to do this, then do it, and it's like icing on the cake. But if you don't have the financial means, focus more on eating a vegan diet. You're going to avoid accumulation of all these harmful products and toxins in the animal kingdom. And you're going to have a much lower exposure to all these things, pesticides and everything, by eating plant foods. So that's number one. And if you can get the toxins out of your products, that's probably number two. And then number three, I would be worried about water. And check out the Environmental Working Group. I think they would probably be the best resource.
Wonderful. Thank you. This is from Lore, and the question is, I have lost 90 pounds, lowered my cholesterol, A1C, and blood pressure to normal limits. I'm 64 and weigh in the low 120s. My question is, can you tell me what has changed internally on the cellular level? I can see what's changed externally, and I'd love to know what I have managed to change internally.
Okay. Well, this is a great question. First of all, congratulations. You're doing it. And I want to be your cheerleader because this is great. And what's happening on the inside, if you could see, the big thing I like to tell people about is visceral fat. So normally your body stores the visceral fat in your subcutaneous tissue, the tissue right under your topical skin, there's a fat layer. So that is the ideal place to store your fat, most metabolically healthy. But when the cupboard is full, the closet is full of fat, the body looks for places to store fat elsewhere in the organs and the muscles. And this is called visceral fat. And this is really unhealthy. It's associated with inflammatory markers and insulin resistance. So that HSCRP, it's a visceral fat indirect marker. So your muscles are becoming more lean. So not to use an animal analogy, but you've seen, lean steaks versus, fatty steaks. There's less marbling of the meat. So your visceral fat has gone down. And not only that, on a cellular level, the fat has gone down. So one of the things that causes insulin resistance is that intramyocellular fat. So in the muscle stored fat. And so even all down to your cellular level, your processes are becoming more efficient. And so those are the main concerns, be it the elevated fat scenario causes overall increased levels of inflammation. And so, and also by losing weight, you're getting rid of the senescent cells. You're getting rid of the out with the old, in with the new type of thing, with the cells that are kind of not working very well. The body, this is what they talk about in True North, where the body is cleans house and gets rid of what's not working. And so lots of positive things going on there in your body. And I want to say congratulations. I want to be your cheerleader.
Thank you. Nice. This is from Randy, and the question is, my 6 adult children range from ages 28 to 40. What would be the most important blood tests or other screenings they should have done at their ages? Unfortunately, only one is whole food plant-based, and for the 40-year-old that thinks his cigar smoking is fine and not as bad as smoking, your response would be?
Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh.
I know somebody that got oral cancer from,
Yeah.
they didn't get lung cancer, but they got oral cancer from the cigar.
Oh my God,
Mouth
oral
cancer.
cancers.
Yeah, mouth cancer,
Yeah, it's horrible. A lot of radiation. You lose the use of your salivary glands. They deal with dry mouth, and it's horrible. So, and it's it's potentially deadly. Anyway, what's the best labs to get for the kids to kind of scare them straight, so to speak? To get them onto the plant-based diet, well, one, you can test their cholesterol. When you're omnivore, your cholesterol tends to be worse. And then when it's high, you say, hey, you should eat less cholesterol and, eat more plants. The next one that I think is really important is the hemoglobin A1C. The reason why I really like hemoglobin A1C, it's a long-term blood sugar test. Because if you get a blood sugar, it'll probably say it's in the normal range. But if you get a 90-day average blood sugar test, the hemoglobin A1C, it can give you sort of a more confident signal about their blood sugar. If they're pre-diabetic or something like that, that could definitely send a strong message. So, but honestly, once you become plant-based, you become a plant-based doctor, you start associating every kind of medical problem with the diet. When I started this, I thought it was all about cholesterol and all about blood sugar. But then when, I saw the magic of the plant-based diet, helping people with asthma and decreasing flares of multiple sclerosis and people having rheumatoid arthritis, improvements, all sorts of medical problems seeming to get better with a plant-based diet. Fibroids, decreasing fibroid bleeding, decreasing hot flashes, stuff that you would just not really associate with diet. I now know diet has a big impact. So have them see different movies like What the Hell, Forks Over Knives, The Game Changers. And I think that's what actually, I read books, but that's what got me, was when I watched Forks Over Knives. I became vegan that day.
But what's your answer to the cigar being better than cigarettes?
Ooh.
Dr. Goldhammer always says, just because something is less bad doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah, that's probably the right answer with that one. I try to get, do the vanity thing, start with that because the smell is disgusting. Maybe the wife or, somebody in their life, their significant others are disgusted by it, don't want to kiss you. But the I would go too with the sexual health thing because we know that nicotine and causes vascular problems, and that if they're feeling any effects from the cigar, they know they're getting some nicotine, and nicotine causes vascular constriction or blood flow. And if you're into having a normal sex life, you want to have good blood flow. So come at it through the sexual health thing. And a lot of guys, of course, hold a lot of machismo about that. And you tell them that it's ruining his erections and potentially cause erectile dysfunction at an early age. Smoking is a big one for that. And cigars have an effect too.
Great. Okay. I see a question, and a couple of people on Instagram were saying to your protein thing that some of the whole food plant-based doctors recommend more, but one of the viewers are saying that to prevent osteoporosis, I got to put my glasses on. I couldn't. I cannot.
We're not getting younger, are we?
I know.
Oh my God.
Steffi's saying I'm whole food plant-based and I want to prevent osteoporosis, and my lifestyle doctor told me to increase protein and gain lean muscle. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, so the alkaline diet, that, you want to be more alkaline. A lot of high protein foods can be kind of acidic, and, that in turn can cause you to excrete some of your calcium. So that is problematic. And so the doctor might be coming at it from the framework of muscle growth. And that is true. But how do you grow muscles? You eat enough calories so that you're not losing weight, and that matches your exercise energy output. So you work your muscles, and that's how you grow the muscles. And you can use your muscles as a indirect sort of bone mineral density measurement in a way, because the bones have to be a scaffolding for the muscles. And so if you find that you're losing muscle mass and you're getting smaller, there's a potential that your bone mineral density is taking a hit as well. So the provider might be worried that you're going to become underweight or frail. And the way you avoid that is you probably want to get no more lower than BMI 20. If you are, at least you want to maintain your mass. But if you are losing weight, try to stop at about BMI 20 and maintain your muscle mass with enough calories to match your output and work those muscles.
Yeah, I've never heard of osteoporosis being low protein is the reason. Have you?
Low calories, underweight, kind of, but not as a direct cause, like a direct issue. In fact, high protein causes additional calcium loss.
Right. So we should be worried about the opposite.
We should basically be worried about the opposite. Yeah.
It's funny how people worry about stuff. Let me see if I can, while I'm looking through the phone for previously submitted ones, let's see if there's anything in the chat.
Keep them coming. Keep them coming, Chef AJ.
Rapid fire. Kathy's saying, can you use psyllium husk in recipes? I do, because that's how we make the wraps, the raw wraps from Lissa Maris.
Ah.
Do you have any thoughts on psyllium husk?
Yeah, psyllium husk is, well, so I've had gastroenterologists tell me, that all these other like Bennett fiber, this and that, like different wafers and fiber gummies and all this stuff is basically doesn't have very good evidence. And that psyllium husk is the leader of the pack, that it's the #1 recommended by the American Gastrointestinal Society, and that that it's high in soluble fiber. That's the main reason. It resists digestion in the intestines and helps, gets down to the colon to be a prebiotic mix for your microbiome. So I hold psyllium husk with high regard. I hold it with high regard, but the higher regard is the whole grains and beans, Lentils is a great one. I mean, it's just loaded with fiber that makes it down to the colon. So I hear that this is kind of the next wave. This is the next wave of supplements. They're going to try to do a bunch of prebiotic mix supplements where you have various indigestible fibers that make it down to the colon, like I don't know, inulin or guar gum or all these things. But psyllium is the king. Psyllium.
Yeah. That's what, isn't that what Metamucil is?
Yes, but Metamucil is flavored, and you might get annoyed with the flavor if you're doing it on the regular.
Yeah.
And so, so Herba Prima is one that is just comes in kind of like an oatmeal container, and it's a white brand, and
Yeah, you could
but
just get like generic ones at like Sprouts and Whole Foods.
yeah,
That's what I use in the when I make Lissa's raw wraps. It's just like 2 tablespoons. Yeah. It does
right.
something to the texture of the wraps that make them pliable and make them really easy to roll.
The weird thing about psyllium husk is that you can experience it on the way on the other end. You can feel that you have some psyllium coming out on the other side, like a little grittiness. So sorry to be disgusting, but I don't want you to think that you have some sort of illness. It's just the psyllium husk.
It goes out the same way it goes in.
Right.
Remember
That's
that
right.
old commercial for a BM in the AM, take Phillips in the PM or something like that. That was an old commercial when I was little.
Sounds like a good jingle there.
Yeah, very well. I still remember it like 40 years later, so probably really good. Okay, so we have a question. You mentioned eating a vegan diet. Can you still have benefits even if you eat a small amount of processed vegan foods? Vegan for 7 years, but sometimes I have vegan plant-based meat products. I think it just depends what they're made of because there's so many different ones, you know?
Yeah. So I don't understand the question. I mean,
Like,
is
do you
it?
think you can still be healthy if you eat some processed vegan food if it's the fake meats, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is you want to avoid the fake meats and cheeses because they're loaded with fat and various processing. However, we're not perfect. The other big problem with these very concentrated foods is that if you get used to eating them, you have the pleasure trap kind of thing where everything else starts to feel like less pleasurable because wow, this is really concentrated, really yummy food, really salty, this kind of thing. So it's way better than eating animal products, way better. And if you need these transition foods and you don't want to stand out, you're at a barbecue and you want to bring your sort of Impossible Burger or something, this is good. But there's things like portobello burgers, or you can even have like carrot dogs or whatever. Have you ever done something like that, Chef AJ? The carrot dog?
I haven't tasted them, but we've had a few people on making them and they look fantastic.
Yeah. You could also do it with like broccoli stems. You could make like a broccoli stem dog or something. But I don't know. You might really stand out if you're eating a broccoli stem dog. But
You know what I do is I was never a big hot dog fan, even when I ate meat, which was
yeah.
almost 50 years ago. I just make delicious plant burgers. My smoky sweet potato burgers, my favorite. And it's
Yeah.
really, it's not about the burger, it's what you put on it, the barbecue sauce that I put sauerkraut on. And it's
Mm,
just, I don't worry about,
mm.
I like all the other stuff more than the actual meat part,
Yeah,
but
yeah, absolutely. So
yeah, it's like, see, because there's no generic plant-based meat, and some of them are probably more healthy than others, and some really have like coconut oil and isolated soy protein. So if it would, I think it would matter which one.
right. And if I do like buying a burger product I look for it to be like a bean burger or something, or a bean or mushroom burger, something that is like less of the imitation meat and cheese.
They're pretty easy to make, though. I
Oh
mean,
yeah. Oh yeah. We make
but
them all the time.
I think people like the sugar, fat, and salt that are in the
Right.
in the pre-made ones a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so Marcia would like to know, are cast iron skillets good or bad to cook with? That I used one that was my grandma's. It's enamel coated or is an enamel coated cast iron skillet better, or is it just best not to use them? I've heard not good things about them, but what do you think?
I know. Yeah. I mean, I've heard the best thing to cook with is stainless steel. I've heard that people do that. You get a little bit of iron through iron cookware, and I don't know the right answer. I don't know the right answer because I had assumed that this might be a decent thing if you're dealing with bad iron deficiency or that sort of thing. But I haven't checked the latest research on whether it is toxic in any way. Iron itself is toxic. Iron, if you get it in high doses, but it's low doses about that you would be exposed to from cooking on cast iron pots, I think would be in a healthy range.
But
What are your
don't,
thoughts?
I mean, as a chef, I've never used them because my understanding is they have to be seasoned with oil. So I don't want to add oil to my diet. So I've never used them. I just use, like you say, stainless steel or some safe nonstick ones. That's what my go-to has been.
Right, right. Yeah. And you're always oiling them up and that kind of thing. But because they stick pretty badly if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a question. What do you recommend for liver hemangiomas? And I have two on my left lobe. I'm still working on getting a follow-up CT and doing blood work. Maybe you can just say what that is too.
So liver hemangiomas, I'm not an expert in this, but I assume what's happening here is what they call an incidentaloma. These hemangioma type things are found incidentally. You're looking for something else and you find these hemangiomas. Another big one are renal cysts, incidentalomas, or these are benign kind of or benign tumors or benign masses or benign things that are found. And then it causes additional testing like, oh my gosh, I'm going to need to have this followed. And so I assume this is the case with these liver hemangiomas. Don't take my word for it, though. Follow your, sounds like you've got a follow-up plan, Usually with any kind of mass in the body that they're worried about, they try to reassure themselves by doing serial monitoring. So whether it's ultrasound, which is low, it's not invasive. Ultrasound is just sound, so you're not getting radiation. But in this instance, with the liver, maybe they can't see it unless they use a CT follow-up, and they'll follow it up maybe at 6 months. And if it's stable, if there's no changes or you don't have more hemangiomas, then they'll say, okay, we'll stop the serial monitoring. But I think that it's in this kind of realm where you're finding some sort of benign thing and that you wouldn't know about it if you hadn't initially had the test. But now that they know, they want to follow it up and make sure that it's not changing or growing.
Thanks. Steffi wants to know, can you gain visceral fat during menopause, even if you're whole food plant-based?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. High sugar diets, high fat diets, weight gain. You would assume that it's somewhat proportional to these kind of things. Fatty liver, it's if you have a high fat diet, high sugars and insulin spikes, that you can develop fatty liver. So which is kind of related to visceral fat as well. So definitely.
Thank you. Karen made a follow-up when we talked about the cast iron pan, saying, well, how do you find safe nonstick pans?
Right. I was going to, you had mentioned the safe nonstick pans, and that is a debate. What is a safe nonstick pan? I don't know the right answer to that.
Yeah, I don't worry about it. I mean, I feel like I can tell you what an unsafe one is, one that has nicks or things like that.
Yeah,
Or
Teflon,
but I mean, the one I've used for years from Pampered Chef, hard anodized steel, I don't worry about that. But truthfully, you can still saute in water, making caramelized onions, even in a good stainless steel pan. So if they're worried
right.
about nonstick, I know some people, like I believe Mary McDougal uses the Copper Chef, or maybe it's the green pan or the scan pan. But if you want to be making things without oil, it's just very easy to use those.
Yeah, just use water to saute, right? That's the main thing.
That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
My A1C is 5.7, but my glucose was 8. I'm whole food plant-based. Should I be concerned?
So those might be the English version of the glucose. A1C 5.7 is pre-diabetes. So it's right on the edge of pre-diabetes. So 5.6 is normal, 5.7 is pre-diabetic. And I'm going to, let's assume that that 8 number is high for blood sugar. Or, either way, if you're concerned that you're pre-diabetic, you should be focusing on weight loss. If you're normal weight and you're pre-diabetic, then you're going to want to have tests to make sure that those insulin antibodies and this kind of thing, make sure you're not developing kind of type 1 or your pancreas is kind of giving out. So definitely talk to your doctor about the next step forward, and go from there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have time for one more?
Yeah, let's do it. One more.
We have 2 more questions. So which one should I pick? Maybe you can go. Okay. All right. I'll do one that I saw first. Ginette says, people I talk to are so obsessed with protein. Where does this come from? The protein obsession. Weightlifting community from.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I mean, there's been lots of videos about this from the plant-based community. I think it was probably in like nutritional stuff. If you're a government and you want to provide advice, you're more concerned about deficiency, because if you're doing like public health, I guess you're more worried about deficiency. So if they came up with a number, so many grams, they probably would bump it up because they would probably assume that people wouldn't actually make it to that number. So I'm assuming that it was kind of an overestimation. That's what I'm assuming. But I mean, gosh, when you see things like forks over knives, watch the China study and talking about an animal protein raising IGF-1 and causing cancer and this kind of thing, it raises the hair even about plant-based protein, like, oh my gosh. And then Dr. Greger's How Not to Age, knowing that methionine and other proteins that are high in higher in animal foods, but there's some in plant foods as well, that excess of this is associated with early death, and that one of the only things associated with longevity is protein restriction to a more normal level. So yeah, and I mean, there's people that wrote a whole book about it, Proteinaholic.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's a great book if people really want to
yeah.
know the answer. But
so they probably go into the history of it.
I think people like meat, so they want good news about their bad habits.
Good news about bad habits.
Okay, real quick, parasites. Do you have any great solutions from Anand?
Okay, parasites. Well, you can first off verify whether you have parasites by doing a stool test, and then if you're positive for a specific parasite, then get the specific therapy. So I would think probably the most common one that people deal with are pinworms, because if you have kids and the kids get it and they share it, it's a human vector at the preschool and something, you can take over the counter. I believe it's called Pyrantel, and you can get rid of that pretty easily. You just have to repeat. Anytime you're dealing with these intestinal parasites, you have to get the treatment, and then there's like eggs remaining, so then you have to get a follow-up treatment maybe a week to 2 weeks later, in case some of those eggs hatch. Now, I know it sounds totally disgusting, but it is a thing. It is a thing. Now, other than that, I mean, there's things like Giardia and various things that you can get from water, camping and stuff like that. But it's overall pretty rare, honestly, very pretty rare. And you can do a stool test to kind of, because you'll be laying awake at night like, do I have a parasite? You start to wonder. And if you're having altered GI status, just get a ONP, ova and parasite test, and through stool. There's also stool antigen tests for this type of thing. Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Harrington. If people want to work with you personally, where do they have to live? How do they go about it? That information is in the show notes, but show notes are only if you're watching on YouTube.
All right. All right. Well, hey, let me share my screen real quickly, just so I can show them all the states. Is that okay?
Yes, please. I thought I enabled screen share. Let me double check. Yeah, I did. I did.
Oh, here we go. Let's do it. Okay, share. All right. So are you seeing the presentation?
Yep.
Okay, yes. I'm Dr. Harrington, and I have a practice called Vegan Primary Care where I can see patients online in 15 US states, or I could see you in person if you're in the Tampa, St. Pete area of Florida, or if you want to drive a long time, but otherwise we can see you online, no problem. And I'm a family practice doctor, also board certified in lifestyle medicine. And through online, I can send lab requests and referrals and this kind of thing. Serve as your primary care doctor online. And so I am in these states, 15 states. It used to be like 30 states, but if I didn't have patients in there, I had finally let them go. It's been sad on some of the states, but we're still going strong on 15 states. Check it out. If I'm in your state, I could see you. I accept insurance, Aetna, Cigna, Tricare, Medicare, and I can see you for cash or for insurance. My cash rate is $250 for a 1 hour initial and $125 for a 30-minute follow-up. So that is it.
Thank you, Dr. Harrington.
All right. All right.
That's
And thank
fun.
you, AJ, for letting me come in and talk and answer questions. I really hope that's helped some people out if they want to see me or if they want to tell their other doctor about what do you think about this, or that. I think I'm always enjoy being here.
Only have one question, Dr. Harrington. Where do you get your protein?
From plants.
Vegan 47 years. If I had even a nickel for every time I heard that, I'd be very wealthy.
Oh, man. Well, I love being here, Chef AJ. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Harrington. And thanks to all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. If you like what you see, please subscribe and come back tomorrow a little bit later at 1 p.m. Pacific time for the Veganista, Chef Kelly Williamson. She's going to be making coq au vin. That's a French dish that usually has chicken, but we'll be making it vegan and